rankings on TalkShoe. And my number one guard is a man from Boston College named Chris Lindstrom. He's not as manly as Quentin Nelson, but he is manly enough to be a first-round pick. 6'3", 314. He pass blocks, zone blocks, run blocks effectively. He dominated the Senior Bowl, establishing himself as the top right guard in the draft. Initially, he was number 2 on my rankings behind Bo Benchuel the entire season, but I moved him ahead of Bo after I saw him stand out in Mobile while Bo did not stand out. Also, Lindstrom has experience at right tackle as well as right guard, whereas Benchuel's more of a right guard. He did 25 reps on the bench press at the Combine and ran a 4.94 40 time, dominating every drill except the kick slide drill. Nelson did good in the kick slide drill and was just a complete blue chip guard. Lindstrom is not that, but he does everything else well. High football IQ, maintains blocks for 5 to 7 seconds, keeps his back straight, long arms, great durability. Only thing I like to see him work on is the kick slide drill, and he does not do well with double teams. His knee bend also needs to improve, but he has everything you look for in a Pro Bowl right guard. He's not a blue chip right guard, or blue chip guard like Nelson or David DeCastro, but he's someone who could be a Pro Bowler, a la Kevin Zeitler. And Lindstrom just brings a lot to the table. Miami could take him. Carolina could take him. Minnesota could take him. The Houston Texans could take him at 23. And the Green Bay Packers at 30 are a team. Because I was going to mock him to the Texans at 23, and Lisa picked him at 30 in our group mock. So, I mean, there's no threats with him. I don't think he's a blue chip player, but he's the only guard from this draft that I could see becoming a Pro Bowler, because I think it's a much thinner guard class. Last year you had Braden Smith, Will Hernandez, Quentin Nelson. You had a lot of guys who wowed you at the Combine and just had that it factor. You had 3 or 4 guys who just were consistent enough on tape to wow you and do well enough to gain a starting job right out of the gate. And this year you have Lindstrom, and then the rest of this class, you've got guys who could be solid starters with coaching, but guys who are not going to be Pro Bowl talents. So I think this year's class is a much weaker guard class compared to last year's group, which impressed us at the Combine. But I think the one guy from this class who could be a first rounder probably will be a day 2 pick, but he could sneak into the first round at some point. I think it's Chris Lindstrom, and I think the fact that he's got that ceiling is why he'll get picked somewhere on day 1.
Well, here's the thing. First off, you're like, oh, you can hold blocks for 5 to 7 seconds. Like, you only have to hold a block for 3 seconds. That's your cutoff. If you go and you keep saying, oh, you can hold it for 5 to 7 seconds, well, people are going to start thinking, oh, he must be a freaking world beater. Why isn't he in the top 5? Because 5 to 7 seconds is an eternity. There's no way in hell he's even going to come close to that in the NFL. Nowhere close. Because even Kevin Zeitler could only hold a block for normally 2 to 3.5 seconds. He was number 2 guard in the NFL or the pass blocking goes. So that is a total overstretch of what, a full-blown great pass blocking offensive guard is. That makes him sound like a top 5 pick, which, as you stated, he is clearly not even close to.
That's just in pass protection. I don't know if...
Yeah. But if you can hold a block for 5 to 7 seconds...
At the college level. The college level and the NFL level are 2 different animals. So if you can hold that in the college level, that's awesome. But how can you do in the NFL? I mean, that's the big thing.
Yeah,
that's the transition.
When you mention 5 to 7, the casual listener will be like, "Oh, well, why don't they have him in the top 5?"
Well, he struggled in the kick slide drill at the Combine. The kick slide drill measures foot speed as well as pass blocking footwork. So that's the big knock on Lindstrom. He can engage with the defender and maintain the block when he gets his hands on the defender, but the footwork may need to improve at the next level. That's something the coaches are going to have to work with him on.
Well, the 5 to 7 second thing, telling the casual listener.
I look for constant blockers and lingering blockers and temporary blockers. I try to classify the blockers by how long they maintain their blocks. Maybe that's not the most effective strategy for evaluating offensive linemen, but it's what I do. You're a former offensive lineman, so if you don't like that idea, you should give me feedback and tell me why that idea sucks.
Like I am now?
Yeah.
But, yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like, cause I'm reading your write-up on it's like, no durability issues. Like, he's got 2 heavy-duty knee braces on. That is a durability issue in itself. Because because I've had to wear those knee braces. Those things suck. Okay, that takes away a lot of your, yes, it makes sure that your leg doesn't snap, which I am forever grateful for, but at the same time, it doesn't allow the same mobility. So I have concerns with the braces because if he's asked to pull, his pulling may not be quite as quick as it would be without them because his knees are not going to move laterally and they aren't going to have the freedom that they would have normally. But overall, I like Lindstrom. I think there's a 1A and 1B. I think he is very good, very technically sound. I think that he has a lot of upside as far as his size goes. 6'3", 314 pounds. He can do everything well, like you said. I don't think he's great. I think he is very good. So and quite frankly, very good is a very good thing because if you don't make mistakes, then there are going to be a lot of coaches, myself included, they're going to say, hey, I don't have to worry about this guy. He may not be the greatest, but he's not going to do something stupid that's going to hurt his team. So that is something that I think makes him maybe the top guard in this class, maybe not. I think it's close with your number 2 guy. So we'll see when it comes to that one. Because I think they're 2 completely different guards.
Yeah. And the next guard, Bo Benchuel, he's a guy who, had he declared for the 2018 NFL draft, he'd have a lot more money because his 2017 tape compared to his 2018 tape was a lot better. Also, he kind of struggled in the Senior Bowl and the Combine, so he might get knocked down some boards for that. But if you take what he did on tape in 2016 and 2017 into account, you're looking at a guy who has the ability to play like a first-round guard, who's probably Wisconsin's most polished guard since Kevin Zeitler himself. And I think his run blocking, his zone blocking is superb. He can pull block effectively. Like, he does a lot of good things on tape. And he had that ability last year. Like, when you watched his tape last year thinking, oh, this guy might be a future Pro Bowl guard, then he has a down year. He struggles against BYU, not only on tape, but I read Charlie Campbell's write-up about how he looked bad in some games on tape. I thought he was very inconsistent at the Senior Bowl, even though I was a huge fan of him heading into the draft process, and his combine didn't help him either. So for me, I'd say he's a second rounder this year, but if he had declared last year, he probably would have gone in the first round. I mean, honestly, so Bo Benchuel is one of these guys that he knows how to be an effective guard, and Green Bay, Atlanta, Carolina, Miami, and Houston are some options for round 2. I don't think he'll be as effective as he was in the college level as he was in the NFL level, but I still think he could be a great starter. And I think this class has maybe 3 guys at the guard who could, 3 or 4 players who could start at guard right away. And then I think the rest of this class has guys who are backups right now, but have potential to be borderline starters down the road.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Benchuel. Benchuel he does not have the consistency at this point in his career. It was very evident from 2017 to 2018. It's something that I've said about, I've said about top guys who fall or top guys who don't pan out in the first couple of years, who are good but don't pan out to their expectations. If you are seen as somebody with that type of ability at one point, you have that type of ability. But something always happens. You don't lose that. Something happens to make that get overshadowed. But Ben Schwell, I think it's consistency. Like I said, he's a different type of blocker. He is going to make some mistakes. He's not going to be that guy who doesn't hurt his team, every now and then with a penalty or something like that. He's going to be a guy who's going to come in there. He's going to punch you in the mouth. He's going to make other teams submit to you. He's going to hit you. He's a great run blocker. He's good in the zone blocking game. I think if he goes to a team like, I hate to bring him up again, but somebody like the Giants or somebody who, like the Jaguars, who so desperately want that running game to work, or something of that nature, I believe that he will be an extremely successful guard, probably a Pro Bowl level guard. If he goes to a team like, say, 49ers, who want to be a passing team, he's probably not going to be as successful as he would if he went to a team that is looking for a great run blocker. And that's something that I think is good for him. Now, at the same time, I do believe that he does need to work on his pass blocking. I think he's extremely athletic. I'm not going to – he knows the defensive side of the ball. He knows pass rushers. He knows pass rush moves. He knows what to look for. He's extremely versatile in those effects. But I think his big thing is pass blocking. He has been in a run-heavy offense for several years where he primarily run blocks. So I think his pass blocking has been neglected. And I think if he gets that fixed, then he will be a Pro Bowler. There is no doubt in my mind. But he has to become a better pass blocker to make that happen.
Yeah, and he's got all the tools except the pass blocking, but he just needs to be more consistent as a pass blocker. And if he can develop that in the NFL, then he could be great. I think a team that runs a run blocking scheme that needs a right guard is the best fit for him. And there are teams. You could draft this guy for depth if you're the Browns. I mean, the Titans have Josh Klein under contract. The Vikings would be a great fit because they're great at run blocking, but they don't really have the best pass blockers, and they mainly run run blocking schemes. So I think a team like the Vikings could be a great fit as well. I mean, the Packers need a right guard. Atlanta, Carolina, Detroit. TJ Lang got released by Detroit, so the Schwell could go there as well. So, I mean, those are definitely some options. And then the next guard is not only the top left guard in the draft, he was the #1 rated guard by Pro Football Focus in pass protection. That's Ben Powers of Oklahoma. And he did well with Kyler Murray. He did well with Baker Mayfield. He was a huge Steelers fan before he committed to Oklahoma growing up. And the Steelers I think they could have upgraded their pass protection by getting him to replace Ramon Foster, but at the same time, I feel like his ceiling is about where Ramon Foster's is. So the Steelers like Ramon Foster more. I don't fault them for extending him. But Ben Powers is the one guy they could have gotten to replace Ramon Foster and save some cap space if they really wanted to. But Ben Powers, even though he did well at the Senior Bowl, he did not work out at the Combine. And there's no 40 time on him. There's really not much data on Ben Powers from the Combine. I love his tape. I love his Senior Bowl week, but he did not work out at the Combine, so I think he falls to the 3rd round as a result. I mean, I I'm looking at the Oklahoma linemen. I like Bobby Evans the best, then Cody Ford. I know people are hyping up Cody Ford to be a first rounder because of his experience at both guard spots before he played right tackle, and that's completely fine. But I would take both Oklahoma tackles before Ben Powers. And then you got him and Drew Samia, the two Oklahoma guards. He struggled on tape versus Alabama, struggled with zone blocking, doesn't have the best athleticism despite having good overall fundamentals. And I think you look at some teams like the Jets at 68, who lose James Carpenter, the Bills at 74, who need multiple guards, the Panthers at 77, who never replaced Andrew Norwell, a team like Atlanta at 79, who's losing Andy Levitre to free agency, and a team like the Titans, who's also losing Quentin Spain to free agency. There's definitely some teams in there that are in the market for some left guards, and I think those teams could all be looking at Ben Powers come draft day. I know there's some people that have a 4th to 6th round grade on Ben Powers, but Joey's been high on Ben Powers all year. I trust Joey because he watched Baker Mayfield extensively, and I really don't see any concerns with him, so I think he could be a solid starter. And then there's Drew Samia, who has better athleticism than Ben Powers, who's got better zone blocking than Ben Powers, can play left guard or right guard, play both guard spots in the Senior Bowl. But he struggled on tape. His pass blocking footwork is not as polished or not as sound as Ben Powers, even though he ran the 40 unlike Ben Powers, but he has better athleticism. So his footwork, pass protection, but his overall speed and ability to charge and use his hands, I'd say he is a better run blocker for that reason. And there's some teams like the Jets, the Bills, the Panthers, Atlanta, and maybe even a team like the Detroit Lions at 88. And I don't really see any threats with Samia. I think he's a bigger project than Powers, but I think you could also argue that he has a higher ceiling than Powers due to his versatility and due to how physical he is at the line of scrimmage. How do you feel about both of these Oklahoma guards?
Well, I'm going to start off with Ford. At this point, I'm going to say he's the Austin Corbett of this class. Corbett can play all 5 positions as well. But the thing is, just because you can play 5 offensive positions, why didn't he play his rookie year at the Browns? Well, one, because he didn't have the strength, which I mentioned earlier. And 2, it's like, okay, well, he's completely versatile. It's like we had to find the right place for him. So I could see Ford going extremely early because he is, as I said, probably the Austin Corbett of this class, but that versatility got Corbett drafted. But I still say Powers is, the man is my favorite guard in this class. This guy has, all pro or better written all over him. He is aggressive. My thing with him is he may not be technically sound. I think you hit on it a little bit. He's not the most technically sound guy on the planet. As far as that goes, I'd say Orlando Brown last year. Kind of the same thing. Not exactly the most technically sound guy out there, but he's very good footwork. He's worked on his hands a little bit. He's a taller guy, 6'6", 310. Probably 6'6", probably closer to 6'7", if I remember the report correctly. So he needs to work on his hands. That can be very difficult for a big guy like that to get your hands in place. I think he needs to work a little bit on his knee bend. Once again, big guy. A little bit harder to bend those knees. It's fine. He bends them well for his size. So I think at this point, he's my favorite guard. I think he has potential to be the best guard in this class. The thing is, like you said, the thing that worried me and put him behind Ben Schwale, which put him behind Ben Schwale, which put him behind Lindstrom, was the fact that he didn't work out at the combine. So now that's going to put a lot of emphasis on what he does at his pro day. And this year, it's like I've said it before, I usually don't pay as much attention to pro days. Usually don't pay as much attention to regional combines unless there's somebody in there that didn't get a combine invite that I really like. But this year, I think it's far more important, not only because of the spectacle that goes around it, but because of the players involved. You have Kyler Murray, which I never put much stock into pro days for quarterbacks. Never have, never will. But with Kyler Murray, I put a little bit of stock into it because, let's face it, what's going to happen? He's going to be throwing, and they're going to have to prove that, hey, he can throw, they get. So what are they going to do? They're going to bring, I'm sure Ben Powers is going to be there, 6'7". They're going to throw in some other offensive linemen. I'm sure they're going to be able to get from their team. They're going to do some things with Murray. And while doing things with Murray, guess what? That's going to show off some of the mobility, some of the footwork and stuff from Powers. So in this case, I think just because he's running with Kyler Murray at the pro day, I think that it's actually going to help him because what's going to happen? They're going to be watching Murray. But, hey, we got this guy. Could be a late first-round pick. Could be a mid-second-round pick. Take a look at his footwork. Take a look at his knee bend. We're going to see a whole picture. We're going to get a lot of tape on him. Guess what? In this case, I think the most eyes this year are probably going to be on the Oklahoma Pro Day. Not just because of Kyler Murray, now because of Ben Powers. And that is going to be incredibly interesting to see how that turns out.
Yep, and Ben Powers and Drew Samia both. Go ahead, please continue.
I would love to see Ben Powers at either Miami or Buffalo because I'd love to see him with those big, strong-arm young quarterbacks, even the Jets. Like, I think he would be excellent there. I'd love to see him because Sam Darnold's made great strides. Like, even though, I mean, last year, he switched up his, I've said it before, he switched up his throwing motion a lot. They kept him with a lot of checkdowns, a lot of 5-yard throws. He was very inaccurate deep. I think a lot of that was because of his throwing motion. He'll have a full year throwing with the shorter throwing motion. You give him that big pass protecting guard. I saw him flushed a lot last year. You know, you give the Jets a Ben Powers. I think that would help him a lot. I'd love to see him with the Jets as well. I think that'd be a great place for him.
And these two guards from Oklahoma are outstanding. Cody Ford's outstanding as well. There's a lot of tackle/guards. If you want to check out the tackles that may kick inside the guard, Orr and I did a Super Bowl show, a Super Bowl podcast, and a offensive tackle thing on our YouTube channel at Draftytopia's YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our channel. But Orr and I broke down all 30 offensive tackles in an hour, which kind of wows Joey considering I only broke down the offensive tackles that had starter ability. I just briefly mentioned the guys who are career backups just to save us time. And I'll do that with this show too because that's a more efficient way of conducting business. But Dalton Risner is one of these guys who could kick inside the guard. Even though he's a right tackle, he could kick inside the guard, and he's communications major, so he could play center too. Also, they're saying Jonah Williams might move to guard, but I'm not buying that just yet. So I feel like he's too skilled to move to guard. He might be a right tackle rather than a left tackle, but I don't think he's going to kick inside the guard. I don't have any of the offensive tackles going in the top 10 now after watching the defensive line dominate the combine. But I think it's very close between Williams, Risner, and Andre Dillard. I think it's a 1A, 1B, 1C situation. And then you've got guys like Jawan Taylor as well. But the offensive tackle group is going to be a very strong group. It's not going to be as top-heavy as the 2018 group, but I think it's going to be deeper. But let's get into the number 5, Connor McGovern. The man known as McGovern at Penn State, 6'5", 308. There's a Connor McGovern on Denver. He's good at pass blocking, run blocking, and zone blocking. He's a mammoth. He's versatile enough to play center right guard, and he's got the functional athleticism. I did a film cut of him versus Pitt on our YouTube channel when I did Penn State's O-line versus Pitt for the Film and Friends team. But my thing with him is he possesses very heavy feet, and he has a very limited football IQ. So he's a guy who could be a solid starter, but you could also argue that the versatility is the only thing that makes him a potential starter. The fact that he moved from center to right guard, and Buffalo, Carolina, Atlanta, Detroit, and Indianapolis are all potential destinations. Mark Lewinsky, the starting right guard, is a free agent, and Braden Smith was a right tackle for the Colts. Like, he came in and won the right tackle job and did well at right tackle. So the Colts could either take a right tackle and move Braden Smith over to guard, like get someone like Cody Ford, or the Colts could take a guy like McGovern and keep Braden Smith at right tackle. So I'm interested to see how the Colts shore up that right side of the offensive line. I don't think it's their immediate priority. I think it'll happen at some point on day 2 or day 3 of the draft. But I think their immediate priority is just to shore up the defense and get maybe another receiver for T.Y. Hilton, because the Colts have more cap space than any NFL team. And if they can get this free agency and this draft right, the Indianapolis Colts are going to be in a position where they could potentially push the Patriots, because I think the Patriots actually have more offseason needs than the Chiefs, the Colts, or the Browns. As crazy as it sounds, Joey, I think the Chiefs, the Browns, the Colts, the Titans, and the Chargers are the 5 teams in the AFC with the fewest offseason needs this year. The Chiefs, the Colts, the Chargers, the Browns, and the Titans. I think the Patriots have more offseason needs than those 5 teams, but since they're the reigning Super Bowl champions and they have Tom Brady, they'll have Isaiah Wynn back. The Patriots are always going to be there because they're the Patriots. They're still the best team in this division because they have fewer needs than every other AFC East team. So for me, I think the AFC is going to be very interesting next season, and I think someone's going to supplant the Patriots. I'm just not sure who it's going to be, even though my Patriots are reigning champs. But Connor McGovern, tell us what you like and dislike about him.
Well, for one, I like his versatility in the fact that he was a longtime center and he did move to right guard. As far as the heavy feet go, I think that's a thing where, as a center, when you snap the ball, your feet have to be planted. And you have to be able to then move your feet quickly to get back up into that pass blocking, pass blocking or run blocking style. That comes with not just quick feet, but technique itself. Because you have to have them planted so the quarterback can really get under you. Because if the quarterback gets under you, catch you in the butt with his chest or whatever when he's going down and you fall forward, that's probably not going to be a good look. Whereas the other linemen, they don't have anybody behind them. They can have those light feet on the snap. So I think part of that is because bad as it was, I played center for 2 weeks. Didn't turn out well. But so I do have respect for centers much more than most people probably would. And then you have the situation with him that so I'm not as big upset about the footwork, the heavy feet. That can be worked out of him just simply because as a center he probably already has the makings to get the quick feet. He just had to learn to do something a little bit different there, some things a little bit different pre-snap. So that really doesn't bother me as much, as it would if he was a guard the entire time, his entire life. Then it would freak the crap out of me. So his ability, so the versatility I like in that situation. I think that with him, he's solid. I think he could potentially, if a team needs a center, I believe he's one of these guys who could also step in at center. I believe he has more potential to be a starting center in this class than he does to be a starting guard. Just my opinion. But I think if you really look at it, he has the potential to be a very good backup guard. I think he has better potential to be a starting center than he does at guard. But either way, his versatility will help him both as a professional and in this draft. Now, that being said, so now we can move on to number 6. Notre Dame Fighting Irish guard Alex Bars. And Chris doesn't have a favorable outlook on Alex Bars.
I liked Alex Bars on tape, 6'6", 312, but because he got injured and didn't work out at the combine, that makes me think he's not going to grade well by NFL talent values medically. I think he actually could end up being one of the steals of this draft, if we're being completely honest, Joey. But because NFL teams are going to look at his injury history and where he stands medically, I think that knocks him down more than anything else.
Well, in my opinion, your number 1 guard has 2 heavy-duty knee braces. These are the same knee braces that Stone Cold Steve Austin wore as a professional wrestler, and he said it limited between the broken neck and that it limited his mobility so that it changed the way he had to do everything. He said he couldn't move correctly and everything else, and you're saying he had an injury, so he's going to drop potentially 2 rounds. I don't see that because, I think in a lot of ways, Bars is probably the 4th best guard in this class. And I think in some ways, especially mobility and such, he is better than Chris Lindstrom. I think he has better mobility than Lindstrom. I think he is a little more agile than Lindstrom. So in those physical traits, I think he's better than Lindstrom.
Look, if he comes out and dominates Notre Dame's pro day, he's going to be a day 2 pick. I honestly believe that. I think Bars is that good on tape. But he hasn't shown that to NFL talent evaluators yet at any point in the process, whether it's by a Senior Bowl or the Combine. But if he comes out to Notre Dame's pro day and just balls out there, he's a guy who can move up to day 2 just based on his film alone.
He is, and that's why I'm surprised that you had him in 4th round, because that's like, oh, this guy's a 4th round pick, and you're like, oh, I
have him as a fringe 4th rounder at the moment, but I think he can move up into day 2.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He is. I think he is somebody who can move well. Think he's got good footwork. I think he probably has better footwork than Lindstrom. But so for me, he does have some concerns, the durability, obviously. I mean, it's like I said, with Lindstrom, got 2 knee braces. Durability is an issue, and you see that. Same here with Barr, coming off pretty major injury. Kept him out after the 5th game of the year, and he still hasn't worked out yet. So, that's pretty big concern at this point. But at the same time, because he did also had one in 2015, as you stated on your report. But I think as far as as overall prospects go, he's good. Like, I think his foot speed's a little better than you give it credit for. As you say, technique, hand placement, is like, I'll say again, 6'6", 312 pounds, hand placement's going to be a bitch. Knee bend is going to be a bitch. It's like these big guys, all of them go through it, and that's especially guard. That's the one hit I have on Powers, and it's the same hit I'll have here. At guard, 9/10 of your quarterbacks are between 6 foot and 6'3" tall. You have got to be able to bend your knees if you're 6'6". So that will be an obstacle for him to overcome. Injuries, obviously, 2 major injuries in 4 years. That will have to be something he will have to overcome. And while I think you understated his foot speed, I do think that he does need to get him a little bit quicker, not for the inline blocking per se. I think his foot speed is very good for inline blocking, but for pulling, he needs to get his feet a little bit quicker so he can make the pivot, make the steps, be in line, and get out there. That is what I think Bars' big weaknesses are. So those things are things he's going to have to work on. I think if he has a good showing, like you said, he can move up into the day 2 picture. How high, it depends on how good his workout is after the injuries. So, but I think he does have some qualities that are, at least before he was injured, again, that are better than Lindstrom, which is saying something. At the same time, Lindstrom isn't going to hurt your team, and he is technically sound, and he doesn't have that 6'6" thing to look around. So I think that in this case, he has the qualities to be a great pass. He has a great blocker and a very good guard in the NFL. But he also has the makings of somebody who's a very good backup. So let's not get too carried away there. But I like him as a prospect, but he has a lot of work to do at this point. And number 7 is guard Michael Dieter out of Wisconsin. Chris?
Yep, Michael Dieter out of Wisconsin. He can run block and zone block effectively. He's got experience at 3 different positions, but he did awful in the Senior Bowl and the Combine. But he's a guy that is a second, third round grade on Charlie Campbell's ranking. So if he goes day 2, that wouldn't surprise me. I love his run blocking and zone blocking, though. The run blocking strength, the way he charges, and he's physical at the point of attack. The footwork checks out. Run blocking, high football IQ. He knows how to show the proper knee bend, but the pass blocking is the concern. The kick slide, the lack of foot speed, and pass protection, the fluidity to hold up in space. He struggles to adjust to counter moves, mainly due to his wide base. And I've noticed all the Wisconsin linemen this year, David Edwards, Dieter, Betrayal, they all have the same issue. They're all dominant as run blockers, but they all struggled in pass protection on tape this season. So I think a team could get a borderline starter if they correct his pass blocking, and I think he could get pushed up due to his versatility. I think a team could reach for him on day 2. So strictly because of the multiple positions he can play. And he's 6'5", 304, but I think he's a day 2 pick, like day 3 pick, but he could end up getting pushed up on day 2 because he does have some strong qualities on tape, but he struggles to change direction despite his outstanding durability. That's why he might be a career backup, even though he has the ceiling to be a borderline starter at the next level.
Yeah, and I'll say this about all the Wisconsin offensive linemen. They're all great pass rushers, or great, okay, let's try again. They're all great run blockers. They all have high football IQ. So these things are I will give Wisconsin all the credit in the world for preparing these men well, or else they would not have so many great offensive line prospects. Now, at saying that, Geiger, as you said, needs to work on his pass protection. He isn't as refined as his teammates in that respect, and I think that is going to be his huge downfall. He's going to work on everything as far as pass protection goes, from technique to hand placement, so on and so forth. Because as far as pass blocking goes, he is worlds behind everybody else, including teammates. So, as far as that goes, he needs help. But if you're looking for a developmental guard who can really get after it and really push the pile, really push the line, I mean, this guy's it. He will push the line. He will make a dent in it. But Geiger has to fix pretty much everything that has to do with his pass blocking game. Have anything else to say about him, Chris?
No, Michael Dieter is got the tools to be a borderline starter, but like we said with all the Wisconsin players, they're mainly run blocking linemen. Now, this next guy from Jacksonville State's a guy who is on my radar, who impressed me at the Senior Bowl. B.J. Autry, 6'3", 351 pounds, long arms. I've seen him maintain blocks for 5 to 7 seconds in pass protection. However, he did it against FCS opponents, and he didn't get an invite to the Combine, so we really didn't get to measure his foot speed or how he did in the kick slide drill. And you shouldn't, if you can maintain blocks for 5 to 7 seconds at the FCS level, you can probably only maintain a block for 1 to 2 seconds at the NFL level. Because I'd imagine the FCS, pass blocking the FCS compared to pass blocking the NFL is a whole different ball game. I mean, it's basically like going from AA to the major leagues right out of the gate. If we're going with baseball analogies.
Normally, I'd agree with you. But Autry is somebody who, strangely enough, I've seen a little bit of tape of. And for his size, remember, this is a 350-pound man. He's pretty, for one thing, he's pretty agile for his size. He has, for a 350-pound man, he's got pretty good footwork.
I originally had a third-round grade on him prior to the Combine, so I do like him. He does impress me on tape.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of these dark horse guys that stands out for me.
Yeah, and he does have the long arms. He is 6'3", so because of his weight, his knee bend is going to be a little sluggish, to be kind. I mean, there's just not much you can do about that. Your knees don't want to bend when you get that much weight, but I think part of that will even out a little bit once he gets into an NFL diet, once he gets onto, an NFL, once he gets working with the NFL in his weightlifting and get into that weight room and get on an NFL regimen. But Autry is one of these guys. I think he's a sleeper. I really do. Because once you get the tape on him, once you see his pro day, once you see him in practice, once NFL teams get a hold of that practice tape and everything, I think they're going to see, hey, this is a guy who we can work with. I still think because he is FBS, as you said, not the greatest defensive lineman he's going against here. He, for his size, I think his footwork is good. It can be improved, but it is good. For his size, you know, he has a lot of potential. I think he'd probably be a third-round prospect. I think you may need to sit him, you know, for a little while. You know, I don't know if maybe through training camp, maybe through the preseason, just to get him used to the speed, get him used to everything. I think he'll adjust well to it, because something that a lot of people don't understand about colleges in the South, something that I've learned over the last year or two. A lot of them are liberal arts colleges, or if they're not liberal arts per se, they have a lot of liberal arts classes. Who are people who are into liberal arts? Let's face it, they're nerds. They're nerds. Okay, they're smart people. So, you know, people don't come to these schools unless you're a Florida or a Florida State or something like that. People don't come to these schools for football. They play football. They're good at football. They love football. But they don't come to it for football. So with him, you know he's going to be smart. You know he's going to be eager to learn. So in this situation, in his case, I think as a third-round prospect, you know, he's going to have to, you know, get used to this. But I think he'll do well, and I think he'll learn quickly. So as I have a rather high ceiling for him, because I think he has the traits needed to be a starter. I just don't think the skills are up to the traits at this point.
Exactly. And B.J. Autry is one of these players that could be great down the road. At the same time, he lacks the ability to be a zone blocker, but I think he's going to be I remember reading the Autry write-up on Walter Football. They had a 3rd to 5th round grade on him. I thought he had 3rd round tape, but he could also fall to round 4 because he didn't work out at the combine. But I don't think he's going to fall to the 5th round.
Yeah. 3 to 5, though, is a good range for, you know, somebody with his makeup. Because I do think that, you know, when you talk about zone blocking, of course he's going to have a little more trouble zone blocking. He's 350 pounds. Okay? You know, it's like he's pretty agile for his size. But at the same time, if you get him going out there blocking down on a linebacker a couple times, he's going to struggle a little bit after that because he's going to be gassed. You know, it's like you can't expect him to run up there. Now, something that I really like, I think that'll probably happen with him, is the same thing that happened with Andre Smith. I don't think people remember that Andre Smith, when he was drafted with the Bengals, came in there 370-some pounds. Marvin Lewis is like, can't do shit with this guy. You know, it's like he would run 15 feet and, you know, he'd be a little bit gassed. So it took him about 3 weeks of conditioning, getting his weight down to about 350 pounds. So he had to lose about 20 pounds to pass the conditioning test. And he had to take conditioning tests every week to maintain that, or else he wasn't going to play. So I think this could be something with Autry, that if they would do something like that with him, that problem with the zone blocking scheme and that footwork that he has a little bit of difficulty with, you know, I think that's all going to go away. Because we'll be able, if he loses about 20 pounds, we'll be able to see a little bit more of that natural ability come out. He'll be lighter on his feet, and things will kind of, you know, work their way into place. So if a coach comes out with, hey, you've got to pass these conditioning tests, maybe make their conditioning tests a little bit more difficult for him, you know, to get it going, then I think you can see something with Andre Smith was a Pro Bowler for a couple of years. I think you can see the same transformation here because a lot of his weaknesses are some of the same weaknesses Andre Smith had. The difference is Andre Smith was playing at Alabama. All right, so number 9, Darrell Williams, guard, Mississippi State, has a 4th-round prospect on it. Chris?
I like this guy on tape to the point where I thought they could be a 3rd-rounder, but he's kind of small, and he didn't get a Senior Bowl or Combine invite, so I don't know if a bad agent or a lack of exposure is going to hurt Darrell Williams' stock, but I think he's talented enough to be a starter, but he's also a huge project, and I'm looking at a borderline starter because he lacks great length and size, and he doesn't have the strength to maintain blocks for more than 1 to 2 seconds. But he can be a constant blocker with the right coaching. Bigger defenders are going to be able to outperform him. He struggles with mirroring opponents, mainly due to his stiff hips. So there are some concerns with Darrell Williams. You could definitely argue there's more weaknesses than strengths. Even though I have a borderline starter grade on him, you could definitely argue there's more weaknesses than strengths, which is why Darrell Williams is a day 3 pick, despite having day 2 tape at times. And there aren't really any threats, but he's a borderline guard in the NFL. He might be a starter, but odds are he's probably a backup. But he's a very good backup. Like, he's a swing guard. Like, you could actually, if you need depth at guard, you can bring him in as a swing guard and develop him.
Well, here's my thought on him. You remember Harrison last year didn't get drafted, offensive tackle, starting several games this year for the Browns. Yeah, it's like you can kind of make that comparison there. But what was Harrison's downfall? His strength. He, anybody who paid attention to him knew he could hold his ground extremely easily against pass rushers who were looking to use whip, swim, and all this, spin moves. He had that. If you bull rush him, he was going to get knocked into the quarterback. And after a few games, he was learning this. So what happened? He started giving up a lot of pressure. But he started giving up a lot of pressure because he started getting a lot of bull rushes. Yeah, incredibly impressive, incredibly quick learner. He started giving up a lot of bull rushes. What happened? He got benched because he had to get stronger. I see a lot of that in Darrell Williams. Very good against your pass rush moves and everything else. He's going to get bull rushed. But the difference is, with Harrison, he has the body type that he can put on a lot of muscle. If he gets in that weight room for a full year, put on a lot of muscle. I don't think Darrell Williams is the same type of body type. Remember, Darrell Williams is only 6'2". That is an issue because that's going to limit the amount of muscle he can put on. But as somebody who's 6'4" to 6'6", going to have a lot more room to put on muscle at, somebody like Harrison. So, I think Harrison will eventually be the starting left tackle for the Browns because he can put on that muscle and because he'll be able to deal with the bull rush. I don't think Williams will be able to. Yes, I agree. He'll be a good backup. He'll be a good swing guard. Will he be able to be even a spot starter? He may be able to be a spot starter if an injury comes up, but I do not see the long-term prospects in him. Next up, Kevin Pendleton, guard, Missouri, 5th-round pick.
Yep, and that's Kevin Pendleton. I saw his Alabama tape. I loved what he did versus Alabama. And even though he didn't get a combine invite, he's got good length and range at 6'4", 330. I thought he did very well versus Raquan Davis and Isaiah Buggs. And I thought he did better than that Alabama versus either one of the Oklahoma guards in pass protection. At the same time, he didn't get an invite to the combine or the Senior Bowl. So for me, he's a 5th-round pick for that reason. but I like him more than Paul Adams, a Missouri tackle who did very well at the combine and was a team captain on Missouri's offensive line. The weakness with him is his run blocking. He's more of a pass blocker than a run blocker. He's basically a left guard version of Kevin Zeitler as far as technique goes, but he's a pure left guard who's very good in pass protection but awful in run blocking. I think you could argue he kind of Ramon Foster is great in run blocking but okay in pass protection. So I'm trying to think of an ideal comparison for this left guard, NFL left guard, great in pass protection, awful in run blocking. James Carpenter, maybe? Is that former Jets guard? Who do you think he reminds you of?
I don't think so. Carpenter was a guy I was extremely high on.
I was too. Most people weren't, but most people had like third-round grades on him, but we had first, second-round grades on him. We were that high on him, and we were right about him. Because I remember the interview we did of him. But
with Pendleton, I don't see it. I see with him, I see a guy who would be a very good backup, very good rotational player. I don't see somebody that is going to go out there week in and week out and try to go against the best linebackers and defensive tackles in the NFL. You may get by against, some of the lesser tackles like the guys from New England, but you're not going to get by against, top tier offensive tackles like the guys from Tennessee, or defensive tackles like the guys from Tennessee.
Well, Joe Thuney's in a contract year, so if I were the Patriots and I didn't want to bring back Thuney, getting Pendleton in round 5 when you address all your other needs is a great spot because you can develop him behind Thuney for a year. And under Scarnecchia, if you put him in Scarnecchia's scheme, he fits that scheme, and you could just reload if you develop him correctly.
Yeah, it's like I love how you just went straight past that dig. Just went straight past it.
Because he fits New England's scheme, and Thuney's in a contract year. So it's like you can just take him to develop behind Thuney and reload.
Well, let's face it, you might have been high on Thuney being a Patriots fan. I was never high on Thuney.
I was never high on Thuney either, okay? I thought Thuney was a backup, but he's managed to maintain the starting guard spot for 3 years now. So he's going to get overpaid, like Nate Soldier overpaid, and the Patriots aren't going to pay him that because they're the Patriots.
Well, the thing with Nate Soldier was actually a serviceable starter. So, Thuney is, they're like, why? Thuney's a serviceable backup. Stop paying his ass.
What they should do is they should draft Ben Powers and sit him behind Thuney for a year and then reload.
Hey, if they draft Powers, I think it would be a perfect, situation for the Patriots. Powers is an excellent player. I don't think it'll happen. I think they've got too many needs. They'll probably address something else first because Thuney is there. Pendleton, I'm just not that high on him. I think that he could be a serviceable backup, but I don't think he is going to be that, big starter. I may be wrong, but I don't see it. So I have to move on here to a guy that I think we're all high on. At least
yep,
bit,
and this Lester Cotton segment is brought to you by the cotton plantation that I own in Tennessee. Yes, after my father passed away, I inherited a cotton plantation. So, yeah, this segment's brought to you by my cotton plantation in Tennessee. But let's get back to less.
Yeah, you run a website and don't have a heck of a lot of money. It's like, how do you run a cotton plantation? How do you run a cotton plantation and you're not at least racking in about $70,000 to $80,000 a year? That makes absolutely no sense. It's like, how bad of a businessman do you have to be to completely screw up a cotton plantation?
What? It's not like the cotton plantation's so abysmal that it's going to turn into a zombie graveyard.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you really screwed the pooch on that one, Chris. It's like, you got a cotton plantation, you've got to be rolling in the dough a little bit.
But maybe that's why the real estate training comes in hand. But let's focus on Lester Cotton. 6'4", 324, left. He can play both guard spots. I thought he had potential to be a starter on day 3, but his pass blocking is awful. Like, his run blocking's great, like the Wisconsin guards. He didn't get a Senior Bowl invite or a Combine invite. I think the reason he didn't get a Combine invite is because he had a previous arrest prior to the start of the 2018 season. Even though he's been clean this offseason, he had a previous arrest. So maybe the Combine took that into consideration and weeded him out as a result, because the Combine's been way stricter this year when it comes to off-the-field stuff.
Yeah, and I love the fact that I think the reason Cotton is so recognizable is the fact he never got hurt. He's always there. He's always available. And let's face it, you're only as good as your availability. My job just let go like 30 people because they couldn't come to work. So you're only as valuable as your durability. And I think that's what makes Cotton such an intriguing prospect, and what does add to his value is that he is always there. He always comes to work. He's made some mistakes, and I agree with you on the Combine this year. It was ridiculous how hard it was to get into the Combine. There are a few guys who didn't get in that we were just sitting there, why the hell weren't they get in? And then it showed, hey, 4 years ago he had an arrest. Well, okay. So I think that could probably played a big factor in him not getting into the Combine. But as far as I'm concerned with Cotton, I love his run blocking ability. I think over the last few years, a good chunk of the Alabama's success on the ground has been because of Cotton. This year, I think, as much as his pass blocking has been lower tier, I think this year it improved. So that is encouraging, because it shows that, yes, while he may be an expert on the ground, with the ground game, he is open enough to be able to learn the pass game. So that is very commendable. It is something that makes you think, hey, this guy could start out as a very good backup, but could develop into a starter down the road because he can learn. Because being from Alabama with Nick Saban, you know that he's already going to be ready for the NFL mentally. So the question is, can he continue to build on that pass blocking? Because he improved this year, can he continue to grow? And if he can, I think we're looking at a pretty good starter going forward.
Yep, exactly. So Lester Cotton's just one of these players that can play either guard spot, but I see a borderline starter at best, and he might fall because of his character concerns. The final guy that I like that we can acknowledge really quickly, because 13 through 15, they're guys we can just read off quickly if you have to go to Walmart soon. But the final guy we can discuss is Udo out of Elon. I mean, 6'5", 327, solid but not spectacular. Senior Bowl, did much better at the Combine, 505 40 time, 327. Did well in the bench press, has massive hands, has 10-inch hands. So he knows how to pack a punch, and he's got the run blocking, the zone blocking down. He was a right tackle at Elon, but he kicked inside to guard in the Senior Bowl, and I think he projects better as a guard in the NFL. But his footwork as a pass blocker, it needs a lot of work, but he's very polished as a run blocker. He has violent hands. He knows how to get at the point of attack, and he has some remarkable qualities on tape. Even though his pass blocking is a project, he's probably, if we're grading this draft based on run blockers, you could make a definitive argument that Udo is one of the top 5 run blockers in this class. And that's one of the reasons why some scouts have higher grade on him than we do. I mean, he definitely has some excellent qualities on tape. And Udo's one of these players that he kind of reminds me of Willie Colon coming out of Hofstra. So great run blocker, okay pass blocker, projects better as a guard than a tackle, but he might move to tackle. He's basically a poor man's Willie Colon, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's for me, he's a little iffy, but he's as a small school prospect, I think we're gonna have. Because I have not seen any of his game tape personally. I saw a little bit of his combine workout, and he's pretty impressive in what he did at the combine. I heard reports from the Senior Bowl that he was not very great. So he had his good moments, but he struggled in his first taste of big time action, I guess you could say. So, in my opinion, he needs to continue to impress in that situation because he was marginally impressive at the combine from what I saw, and he wasn't really that impressive at the Senior Bowl, so it's step up. So he needs to, at his pro day, impress what few GMs will actually show up.
Demetrius Knox out of Ohio State, 6th-round pick, and I got him as a guy who can pass block effectively. He's mainly a right guard, but he needs to get stronger. He takes bad angles way too frequently on tape. I noticed this versus Michigan. He might be a 7th-round undrafted player, but he's got heavy feet, and the heavy feet cause a lack of bad angles as well as Knox to lose balance when blocking, but he knows how to get his hands on the defender. He just doesn't engage enough. He's a late-round project. I think he's a career backup. Like, if you're looking for depth at right guard, like if the Browns want to get a backup to Austin Corbett at right guard in case they need insurance, then this is a guy they could get to stash late in the draft. Like, I think the Browns would be a good fit because they just lost Zeitler, and if Corbett does not make that leap, you have depth behind Corbett, and you can just reload and develop Knox. But Knox is also a guy who might not even make the Browns' final roster. So you're taking a risk by adding him. But I think Knox is a good value pick late in the draft. Or a team like the Giants could get him as a run blocker or shore him for depth. There's a few ways you can do this, but he's mainly a backup guard at this point. And that you could say that about the rest of the guys in this class too. You got Garrett Brumfield at LSU. Pass blocking looked good against Auburn. He was actually showing this effective pass blocking strength against Auburn's defensive tackles. They had Derek Brown, who could be a first-rounder in 2020, and they also had Dontavius Russell, a 3rd-round guy. So the fact that Brumfield had some success against those guys says a lot. At the same time, he also got injured, knocked down on a play, like knocked flat on the ground, kind of like Will Clapp. So I think he's a day 3 pick. I think he could be better than Will Clapp, but you're also probably looking at a backup. And then the final guy on tape, which I want to spend a lot of time on, the most intriguing guy, I think, of the last 3 guys, Larry Allen Jr. This is a guy nobody in the scouting community has talked about. He's an Ivy League prospect. He can do everything on tape as far as technique and fundamentals go, but he lacks a size. The strength isn't there. He's only 6'4", 285. While his father excelled in these categories, his son is just not the same breed of man his father was. But he went to Harvard and he majored in bioengineering. So He could make some money in that.
His father could eat you, okay? His father could eat you. Let's just put all that to rest, okay? His father was a mammoth of a man. That is to say, oh, he just didn't get it from his father. Dude, the only person I've ever seen get it from their father in that situation is Orlando Brown Jr. Okay? To say he didn't get it from his father, it's like, how do you get an extra 70 pounds from your father? Did you eat him? That's okay. That's one of those things that's just really, really weird. Because let's face it, Larry Allen Jr. is a very good prospect. He has the height that he can put on another 10 pounds. You know, probably 15 pounds, you know, and do it in a healthy way. Not going to hurt him. So his weight doesn't bother me as much as his work ethic. I haven't seen his practice tape. I don't know his practice habits. But if he has an extremely strong work ethic, if he's willing to get himself in the gym, then I don't think the weight's going to be an issue. To compare anything to this, let's face it, his father was one of the best that I had seen for a long time. Comparing somebody to his father is just weird in any way. The only reason we can, you know, compare Orlando Brown Jr. to Orlando Brown is because their games are almost 100% identical. Their games are identical, their weaknesses are identical, their strengths are identical, their body types are identical, almost a complete 100% copy. It's not that way with Larry Allen Jr. So, I mean, I think Larry Allen Jr. has the potential to be a great offensive guard. Is he going to be his father? That is like, I don't even think Orlando Brown Jr. is going to be his father. So, and you know how high I was on our little Hercules there. So, I mean, that's saying something, you know, just saying. Chris?
Yep. Larry Allen's got all those tools. His son does not have those tools, but I think he can make a lot of money in bioengineering. I mean, bioengineering is a big field. You want to discuss bioengineering really briefly?
No, I don't want to do bioengineering. Shit. It's like, what do you think I am, MacGyver?
The MacGyver reference. I love it.
Give me a rubber band, a paper clip, and some super glue. I'll make you a nuclear reactor. Like, how the hell does this work? Like, okay, you know, it's like, you know, give me some.
You know, the guy who played Golden Arm on BMS was MacGyver on CBS. The guy who was Golden Arm on Blue Mountain State, the quarterback, he ended up playing MacGyver in the reboot. But the reboots probably suck compared to the original MacGyver.
It probably, yeah. It's like let me put it this way. The original show and the people they got to play the characters on the original MacGyver were perfect. They really didn't have to act much because you have to remember, you know, I mean, it just fit their personality so well. It's like, so, I mean, they were really just acting out their personalities to an extreme while playing a character that did something that you know, they weren't accustomed to doing. So that, I'm going to give you that. So it's like, from this, it's like, those type of shows don't come around very often, where the only thing you have to do is really, just be yourself, and, oh, I do this for a living. It's like, one of the reasons Power Rangers has gone downhill is because the original few series is like, oh, what were their occupations? What did they do in high school? What did they do? Oh, they actually did this in high school. They're actually doing this now. So, but they're basically just playing themselves. Like, oh yeah, we're Power Rangers. Oh, actors there. It's like, oh, I'm actually just being myself. I'm just this guy who deals with gadgets. The best parts, like professional wrestling back in the day. Like, everybody's like, oh, those wrestlers are so faggot. It's like, the only thing they did was they took their personality, ramped it up, and said, I'm doing this for a living. And those are the best actors. Those are the best parts. Those are the best players. And I'm sorry, you're not going to get that in a modern day reboot. Because unless you are a highly paid actor, they don't allow that type of creative freedom anymore. I'm sorry, it's just the way the business is now. Unless you have star power leverage, you don't get that freedom. So this reboot, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And there is my take on the entire entertainment industry for today, children.
Amazing stuff with our guard rankings. We'll be back on Tuesday to break down the centers, and then it's defense, which is the strength of this class. So long from Google Plus. We'll have our closing thoughts on Talk Shoot